Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and as promised today, this afternoon, as I promised to you, I'm going to talk about the resignation of Joe Kent, who was the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, and he has resigned in a very dramatic fashion in opposition to the war in Iran. And he's one of the senior most or second most, you could say, in counterterrorism here, if you place him below Tulsi Gabbard, who is his boss as the director of national intelligence. So he's a very important person. He is the point person for counterterrorism activities. And when you say counterterrorism, everything. So if this war in Iran is about counterterrorism, then Joe Kent is one of the key persons on this issue. So Joe Kent was appointed by Donald Trump. I will give you his bio, but he resigned in a very dramatic fashion. And I actually want to read his letter of resignation to you. So this is Joe Kent with Donald Trump. And let me give you a little bio of Joe Kent, and then I will show you his resignation letter so you understand who he is. You know, there's a lot of internal debates in the far right of the MAGA and in MAGA that I am really not interested in pursuing, understanding, or talking about it. Apparently, he's now suddenly everybody's saying he's very right wing. He's associated with the racist Nick Fuentes, uh, and and suddenly he's, as of today, he's anti-Semitic. All of that, but why weren't we talking about this when Donald Trump appointed him? So first, let's look at who is Nick Fuentes. Sorry, Joe Kent. So this is Joe Kent's CV, and let me pull up his CV and read it to him. He he was the director of national intelligence of the National Counter-Terrorism Center, and to read a little bit more, he's from Oregon. He's a native. He's a graduate of Norwich University in strategic defense analysis. He served in the U.S. Army for 20 years, where he completed 11 combat deployments in the Middle East and high threat regions. So he was in the US Army for 20 years. During his time in the Army, he served with the 75th Rangers, Army Special Forces, US Army Special Operations Command, and received numerous military commendations, including 6 Bronze Stars. Okay, this is more than what all of Donald Trump's, I guess, the rest of the cabinet got. So he's got 6 Bronze Stars. Then, after retiring from the Army in 2018, he served in the CIA in Special Activities Center. So this is James Bond we are talking about, right? So not only that, but his family also devoted their lives to counterterrorism. And in 2019, after he left the Army and joined the CIA, his wife, who was a Navy senior chief petty officer, Shannon Kent, was killed in a suicide bombing while serving in Syria. So basically, this is unbelievable. This guy gave 20 years to the Army, several years to the CIA, and then obviously he has the credentials that to be appointed the director of National Counterterrorism Center. And when he was nominated, this is what Trump had to say about him. So Donald Trump says, "It is my pleasure to nominate Joe Kent as the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. As a soldier, Green Beret, and CIA officer, Joe has hunted down terrorists and criminals his entire adult life." So this is a real life James Bond tough guy. Above all, Joe knows the terrible cost of terrorism, losing his wonderful wife, Shannon, a great American hero who was killed in fight against ISIS. Joe continues to honor her legacy by staying in the fight. Joe will help us keep America safe by eradicating all terrorism from the jihadis around the world to the cartels in our backyard. So he's going to fight the terrorists. He's going to fight the the narco terrorists also. So great. He is a great hero. He's won 6 bronze medals and so on and so forth for bravery, etc. But now suddenly, Mr. has resigned from his position. And this is what he says. This letter is absolutely like a bomb. He dropped this bomb on the Trump administration. And I will read parts of the letter out to you. Let me just enlarge it so that I can read the letter. So, Jochen says, Mr. President, or addresses the President Trump after much reflection, I have decided to resign from my position as director of the National Counter-Terrorism Center effective today. I cannot, in good conscience, support the ongoing war in Iran. And why does he say that he can't support the war in Iran? Because Iran poses no imminent threat to our nation. This is what I was also telling you. This is what the US intelligence said before the war. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. So that's it. In the second paragraph itself, he says, this is not an America first, this is Israel first war. I support the values of the foreign policy that you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, 2024, blah, blah, blah. You understood that the wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed America of the precious lives of our patriots and depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation. We spent $6 trillion in Iraq and Afghanistan, lost thousands and thousands of Americans there. And then those who came back, there are thousands who committed suicide, suffering from PTSD, or have been addicted to opioids, etc. So it has a devastating impact on American image, on American military, on American treasury, and on American society. And this is what Trump was saying in all his campaigns, and people appreciated for him. In fact, a lot of people with families who have had some kind of military relation, somebody in the family was in the military, they all supported him, etc. So he says, as a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times and as a Gold Star husband, Gold Star families are those families who have lost a family member defending America, especially in the armed forces, who lost my beloved wife Shannon in a war manufactured by Israel, he says. I cannot support sending the next generation to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people, nor justifies the cost of American lives. And so he left. So this is the first big drop. There's a lot of chatter that perhaps Tulsi Gabbard will also follow him because, like I said, Tulsi Gabbard is the director of national intelligence. She's the boss of all of this, the CIA. America has about 16 intelligence agencies, the FBI, the CIA, the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and then there's one in the State Department. There is the ATF, etc. So there are about 16 such security agencies, and all of their intelligence apparatus go ahead and report to Tulsi Gabbard. So if there's anybody who knows everything that American intelligence knows, Tulsi is the one who knows that. And what she has done is she has said repeatedly, in fact, she made a video saying that Iran is not an imminent threat, is not pursuing nuclear weapons, etc., etc. So let me just tell you what the reaction is. Of course, people like Tucker Carlson and others who are opposed to this war. In fact, Tucker Carlson, a very important MAGA voice, Trump supporter, who Trump met in the White House while Trump tried to, basically, while Tucker Carlson tried to convince Trump not to go to war in Iran, but he failed. So people like Tucker Carlson and others are quite thrilled about it. But Tulsi Gabbard had something very interesting to say. Let me see if I can pull up Tulsi Gabbard's statement. She made a very smart statement, and this is what she said on social media. She basically said that Trump was overwhelmingly elected by the American people to be our president and commander-in-chief. He is responsible for determining what is not an imminent threat. Her office, she says, is responsible for helping coordinate and integrate all intelligence to provide the president and commander-in-chief with the best information available to inform his decisions. After carefully reviewing all the information before him, President Trump concluded that the terrorist Islamist regime in Iran posed an imminent threat, and he took an action based on that conclusion. So Tulsi Gabbard is saying that so Donald Trump made the assessment that Iran poses an imminent threat, not the intelligence community. All they did was present the information that was available to them and said, look, this is what we know, Mr. President. This is what we know about Iran. This is what Iran is doing. This is what Iran is saying, etc. So it is Donald Trump who looked at all the evidence. Yeah, right. And he sat all night up having tea and going through the intricate data, doing simulations and scenario buildings. And after all this careful deliberation and heavy thinking, Donald Trump then concluded that Iran was an imminent threat to the United States. In fact, he keeps saying that if it got a nuke, it would drop it on everybody or anybody right away. Well, Donald Trump himself told us, I wonder whether she had a paper on which he says, the current president of the United States, Donald Trump, says that he has obliterated Iran's nuclear capabilities. And as such, since Iran's nuclear capabilities are obliterated, Iran does not present an imminent threat to anybody. But anyway, so this is what Tulsi Gabbard did. And a lot of people on social media are actually having a field day.
Not consecutive.
So this is not what I want to show right now. Are basically trying to make the point that she did not say what her opinion was. So Tulsi Gabbard didn't come out and say, no, it is our assessment. It is the intelligence agency's assessment that Iran presented an imminent threat. She didn't say that. She said it is Trump's assessment. So she basically threw Trump under the bus without mentioning Joe Kent and without defending him, obviously. She can't defend him because she probably wants to keep her job still for some time. So she didn't say that Joe Kent is wrong. She basically said, look, we have what we have as evidence. So she's implying that this is Joe Kent's assessment that there is no imminent threat. And of course, this is his analysis that this is a war being fought for Israel under pressure from the Israeli lobby and from pressure from Israel itself. That's what she's saying. That's what Joe Kent is saying. She's not getting into that side of the argument. She's basically saying that our job is to collect all the information and give it to Donald Trump, and it is his assessment because he was elected. He makes the call. This is really fascinating. And this is also very frustrating. In the past, I have been consulted by various American security agencies, and they used to get so frustrated with me because they would tell me, Dr. Khan, we want to know, like they will ask me, like, what do you think is going to happen if the Strait of Hormuz is closed for 3 months? Look, they didn't ask me this particular question. I'm giving it just as an example. So if the Strait of Hormuz is closed for 3 months, what is going to be the impact on the global south? So they could ask me a question like that. In fact, they should come and ask me that question and sit down with me. And then all I would tell them, whatever I would say, then there's Dr. Khan, don't make policy recommendations. That's not our job. And now they're telling me them that this is not the job even to make a net assessment. In fact, I just wrote a net assessment today, and it is going through the process of review. In fact, I wrote it yesterday. It went through the review process today, and hopefully in a couple of days it will be published, and you'll see an example of how net assessment is developed through various scenario building exercises. So it is the job of the intelligence community to say, this is the evidence and this is our assessment. And now you decide what the policy is, to invade or not to invade, to dialogue or not to dialogue. So the CIA or DIA or the Director of National Intelligence will say, this is all the information we have. And from this information, we conclude that Iran poses a strategic threat or an imminent threat to the US or to Israel or to the Gulf. And now, Mr. President, if they want policy recommendations, they can go to think tanks, they can go to the National Security Council. That's their job. And most probably, if the briefing is done by the National Security Advisor who's sitting there with the Director of National Intelligence, then he will say, this is the NSC's recommendation, Mr. President. This is the DNI's assessment. But Tulsi Gabbard chickened out, but very smartly. So she showed that she's not scared shit of Trump. Because if she was scared sheet of Trump, all she would have done was to just come out and say that no, Joe Kent is wrong, Trump is right. And she could have potentially, lied in some way to say that no, this is all along. This is what the intelligence community thought all along. Caroline Leavitt basically says that he's wrong. He's factually wrong. Joe Kent is factually wrong about this. It's the president, and she's using Donald Trump's statements as if they reflect reality. And she's saying that the president said that Iran presents an imminent threat. So that's it. If the president says that, then it is a fact. I find that quite amusing. I don't know how Caroline Leavitt thinks that just by saying that if Donald Trump says something, it becomes a fact. Well, Donald Trump said the Iranian nuclear capacity was obliterated. If that was a fact, then how is it a threat today, just a few months later? So anyway, the Trump administration does not get point for being very bright. The way I describe it often is dumb and dumber. With every iteration, they appear stupider and dumber going forward. But anyway, let me show what Trump himself had to say in response to this.
But when I read his statement, I realized that
this is it. He's asked the question, what is your reaction to the resignation of Joe Kent? And this is what he said.
Your director of national counterterrorism, Joe Kent, he just resigned today. He said he can't support your conflict with Iran. What's your reaction to that? And did you?
Well, I read his statement. I always thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security.
So Donald Trump is saying he always thought that Joe Kent was weak on security. If he thought, and he always thought, that Joe Kent was weak on security, then why did you?
We thank you for.
Then why did you appoint him to the most important job, which is the director of the National Counter-Terrorism Center? It is my pleasure, says Donald Trump, to nominate Joe Kent, who is very weak on security. And I have always known that he's weak on security, but I am still going to appoint him as the director of the National Counter-Terrorism Center. Pray tell me why. This is what happens if policies are made without deliberations, comments are made without thought. Now, there's another interesting aspect to this whole I don't know what happened. I just dropped out. I think I should be a bit more careful while getting into this. So another interesting aspect that is happening is this debate and this fight between the MAGA crowd itself. So I want to show you a video by Megyn Kelly. And Megyn Kelly is making a very interesting.
Started there.
This is what Megyn Kelly has to say about this whole.
There. Like suddenly I'm an anti-Semite. Like no one can name anything anti-Semitic I've said. I attributed us getting into this war to people like Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, Miriam Adelson, who definitely paid Trump hundreds of millions of dollars, and this is her number one thing. But it's also, and I reported this to you last weekend, my old pal Mark Thiessen of Fox News, and General Jack Keane of Fox News, and Lindsey Graham. I think all three of those are not Jewish people, pushed hard for us to get into this war. Been very critical of Lindsey Graham, who's frothing at the mouth for more death. But Mark and General Keane, I respect and like them both. I disagree with them, and they disagree with me, but that.
So Megyn Kelly is also being very quiet and careful, like Tulsi Gabbard, and critical of what is going on in the Middle East. And so she's saying that there are certain people from the pro Israeli lobby, and she's going after another guy called Savage. And I'm going to pull up his video and play his video for you, and you will understand what she's saying about these people.
Years ago, I was
So,
up here.
so this guy. So she's saying these are people who
6
control
years
Donald Trump in many ways. She's talking of Miriam Adelson, who gives hundreds of millions of dollars for Donald Trump so that he can do what Israel wants. And these are all people who are from Fox News who support. So this guy, this video that you're seeing is very recent. This is roughly the same time when Tucker Carlson also went to the White House and could not influence Donald Trump not to go to war. But look how this fellow, this guy's name is Savage, I think, the way he's talking about Trump. And Trump is like so coy and mushy, as if he's on his first prom or date or whatever.
6 years ago, I was up here, and I said, "This is our first Jewish president."
So I want to know why he's saying he's the first Jewish president. What is Jewish about Donald Trump? His values? Are his values Jewish? A majority of American Jews vote for the Democrats. So what is Jewish about him? Even asking such questions are like, oh, you're anti-Semitic. No, I'm not. I'm just listening to what this guy is saying and asking, so what is Jewish about Donald Trump? Why is he a Jewish president?
Now he's the first Jewish president to serve two not consecutive presidencies. We thank you
That's
for
right.
everything.
That's right. Bad things happened on the second one. Namely, the election was rigged.
So she's pointing to exactly this kind of statements that are made, and she's saying that these are the people who won, and people like Tucker Carlson lost. So who are these people? They are people. She also mentions General Keane, and she mentions another person. I mean, it's obviously since Senator Lindsey Graham, who says that he's going to go to South Carolina and tell all his followers he represents the state of South Carolina. He's going to ask them to send their daughters and sons to go fight and protect Israel, etc. So there's a debate going on in the MAGA crowd right now that Donald Trump has fully abandoned the no long wars, no ending wars, no regime change wars, and abandon the America First promise that Donald Trump made during the election campaigns. It appears there are some commentators. If you go to social media and look under Joe Kent, you'll find people coming out and saying, "Oh my God," there are some very prominent MAGA commentators. I mean, I don't know them. I don't follow this crowd. But the reason why I'm saying they're prominent is by looking at the millions of followers that they have on their YouTube channels and on their X, etc. So these guys are all saying that Donald Trump has become an Israel first president. And that is why Joe Kent has resigned. Already the backlash has started against them. So anybody who criticizes Israel is immediately labeled anti-Semitic. So they are trying to shut down any and all debates on American foreign policy which have to do anything with the Middle East. In fact, the most interesting thing, I was on a panel very recently, and I was the fifth of 5 panelists, so I was the last to speak. And these are all great scholars who went before me. They're very prominent scholars, PhDs, very prominent impact for decades on international relations, etc. But yet, after listening to 4 of them talk about the war in Iran, my first statement was that, well, I live on a different planet than all my previous speakers, because the planet on which I live, there's a country called Israel. Because these guys were able to talk about, some of them for 20 minutes, about the war in Iran, without mentioning Israel at all. It's absolutely got nothing to do with Israel. There's no such thing. Even Donald Trump, every time he talks, he just clubs Israel together. and says that it is to protect Israel, it's to protect my allies, it's to protect America, it's to protect the Western civilization, etc., etc. But that part is always there. But even to talk about it that's what Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson and others are saying, that the moment we start criticizing Israel, we are accused of being anti-Semitic. So now that Joe Kent has resigned from his position, he's now being accused of being an anti-Semite, because in his resignation letter, this is what he said. I'm going to read that particular part again to you, which is just the second paragraph of his resignation letter. He says, I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. So the moment you say that there is an American lobby, you become an anti-Semite, and so he's being labeled as an anti-Semite. If he was such a bad guy, some people are accusing him of being a white supremacist or a white nationalist. Well, maybe he is. I really don't know much about him. I didn't know anything about him till I heard that he had resigned. If this was the Democratic establishment, I would probably know the guy who would be in that position. But with these kind of people, I just stay away all the time. So I won't be surprised that if he's indeed a white supremacist or a white Christian nationalist. And that would explain why he's in this job. Because this administration is the closest that America has had to a white Christian nationalist administration in the United States. Oh my God, my lights have died. Wow. Anyway, so that is all I wanted to share with you. So I will I'll continue in the dark as oh, wait a second. Wait a second. All right, so the lights are back. So I'm going to read your comments and your questions and see if I can answer any of them if they are interested at all. All right, so here, Arun, happy to visit. Very good morning for those of you. Wa alaikum salam. Good morning from Punjab, India. Very good, very good. Lots of good mornings and hello from South Asia. Prakash Mishra, thank you very much for joining. No wonder now Trump will charge him for his failure in Iran. Yeah, well, I don't know. Donald Trump is going to be in deep trouble. This war is not ending. The way Donald Trump thought it would end in glory for him and for Netanyahu. It is quite possible that the entire world is going to pay a very heavy price for this particular excursion that Donald Trump went on. That's what he called it. This is an excursion. Excursion means going on a trip, school trip, or a picnic, So, okay, Chim has a very interesting observation, deserves to be highlighted. So he is saying that people should just get off. This is what he's saying. Several others should follow his lead and get off that sinking ship of fools quickly. There is a lot of chatter that Tulsi Gabbard probably will be the next person to resign. I think if this war continues for another month or so, it is quite possible she will also bail. Because already what is happening is that she's not able to do her job. It is also very funny that when the war started on the 28th of February, Donald Trump was in Mar-a-Lago in Florida. So the only two people who were apparently in the Situation Room in the White House were J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard. These were the only two monitoring the war from the Situation Room, both of whom are clearly opposed to this war. It's very clear that J.D. Vance has distanced himself from this war. He's not talking much. He cannot, because, obviously, he does not want to lose the supporters of Donald Trump. So basically, the challenge now for people like J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio and others is how to keep those who support Donald Trump, the Donald Trump coalition, the MAGA coalition, which brought Donald Trump to office, how to ensure that you are in their good graces and also distance yourself from Donald Trump's stupid policies and failed policies. So that is J.D. Vance's and Marco Rubio's challenge. Marco Rubio apparently is becoming more and more popular in the Republican circles because he's perhaps the most articulate person in the entire administration when it comes to the foreign policies and trying to explain rationally all the irrational things that Donald Trump is doing. Exactly. You're very right, Lakshmi Iyer. Joseph Kent had supported Trump in the very beginning, and now Trump calls him weak. I always knew he was weak on security. Oh my God, if he was weak on security, then why did you put him in something else, like urban development or healthcare or something else? Why put him as the director of National Counter-Terrorism Center? One of the most important, shall we say, tool in the toolbox to protect America from external threats. I mean, the man doesn't even think what he's saying. He was weak, and so I made him in charge of our defense. Why have a strong person defending us when we can have a weak person like Joe Kent defending us from terrorists? This is ridiculous. Why are we not seeing any major impact of Jared Kushner in a long-time business? They are busy making money, Lakshmi. They're busy making money. If they come into government, then they cannot rake in the way they are. That's why neither Trump's sons nor his daughter or daughter-in-law is in the administration. Even though Jared Kushner has been negotiating with Iran and others, he's just going around as if he's Secretary of State with Steve Witkoff. I mean, Jared Kushner was involved in these negotiations with Iran also. Why would he be? And I think he was also involved in the negotiations with Ukraine. He has no official position. Does he have the security clearance to even look at the all the intelligence before he goes into a negotiation with a foreign country? I don't know how this works at all. This is where the Congress has to ask questions, right? The Congress has become useless. They've destroyed the American Constitution by eliminating the most important aspect of the US Constitution, which is checks and balances. It's the job of the Congress to check the president, not become a cheerleader. And they just have pom-poms and they're jumping up and down cheering Donald Trump. At least the Supreme Court has shown some guts. And even judges appointed by Donald Trump in the Supreme Court showed some guts and pushed back on the tariff issue. Anyway, so that is what I wanted to show. There seems to be an utter chaos going on in the Trump administration. There is chaos on the battlefield. Donald Trump is begging for help from foreign countries, trying to put together a coalition to bail him out because he's not able to control the devastation that Iran is causing to the global economy by blocking oil flow from the Strait of Hormuz. Let me tell you, even my students in my foreign policy, American foreign policy class, 19-year-old students would have told Donald Trump that if you're going to war with Iran, the most dangerous thing or the most riskiest thing to you will be that Iran will block the Strait of Hormuz and Iran will start targeting oil infrastructure in the region, might burn it down. That is what basic students of foreign policy would have told him. And I'm sure the people in the Department of Defense, maybe the State Department, I don't know. I don't know whether anybody thinks in the State Department anymore. They just let Rubio do whatever he wants, and Rubio also does whatever Trump eventually asks him to do. But I think the people in the Defense Department of Defense would have pushed back, and as did the Joint Chief of Staff, who just told him that this war is going to be very difficult, very expensive, and very, very long if he wanted regime change in Iran. So the foreign policy is chaos. Relations with allies are chaos. Domestic scenario is chaotic. Inflation is going to go up through the roof. The price of gas has gone up by 50 to 70%. In every state, it is way above $3 now. It was the average price, according to AAA, I think was $2.90 $2.90 before the war started, and now it's $3.70. The release of about 400 million barrels of oil by the International Energy Agency, IEA, has brought in greater supplies and kept the price down a little bit. And because the price of gas has not gone way above 100, that the stock market has stabilized a little bit. But if this continues, and I think that those 400 million barrels are probably half, maybe 20 days worth of supply to offset. So if this war doesn't end in the next 1 month, then either America will have to release more. America is releasing 172 million barrels, about 40% of what the whole world is releasing from their strategic reserves. So we will probably exhaust all reserves, and then the price will skyrocket. And some people say 120 or might even go up to 150. Imagine that if the price of oil goes to $150 per barrel, then many countries will go into recession, and the global economy could go into recession. Recession means having negative growth. That means your economy is shrinking for 2 quarters in a row. The war started on roughly the 1st of March, so it's just been around for 17 days. So 6 months later, we will see what the overall impact of the price hike is going to be on oil prices, on the global economy. But right now, there's chaos at home, there's chaos abroad. That is the Trump administration. And this is what Donald Trump calls the golden age. Thank you for watching Conversations. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. Like this video, press the bell icon. Don't forget to share this video with your socio-political network. And if you like our broadcast, do come back regularly. I'm doing 1 or 2 shows. Tomorrow, I'll be recording a show with a very distinguished Indian ambassador who is from my hometown. And we will be looking at the Indian point of view of what's happening in the Middle East. And the war on Iran, especially given the serious negotiations that are going on between Iran and India on allowing Indian ships to go out of the Strait of Hormuz, just the way Iran is trying. Apparently, one ship or another Indian ship went through the Strait of Hormuz safely, but it was making payments in yuan, in Chinese currency, to the Iranians. Anyway, thank you for watching. Take care. Bye.